Welcome to Offscreen. This week we're reading Deeper by Max Landis. A deep-sea dive turns into an unexpected psychological exploration for a former astronaut who signed up for the mission. So a bit of a surprise, we didn't announce this one.
Yeah,
but we kind of botched the whole...
We didn't botch the voting.
Well, we did, because we should have set it up further in advance.
I guess. I just thought...
Because we didn't allow ourselves time for the poll to come to fruition.
You know,
and
it's
then...
election season. I thought people would be charged up to vote.
I know, and a lot of people are dissatisfied with their options this go around, it seems like. But, like, we presented two very strong candidates.
Right.
In terms of...
Which one's the Donald Trump?
Neither. That's the beauty of it.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. Not even a Ted Cruz.
So the point is we're going to wait until next week and see if we get some more votes for which script to read.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we're surprising you with another Max Landis script, so...
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago we reviewed Bright, which had just sold to Netflix with Will Smith attached, and a promised budget of like $90 million. And then soon after that, he sold another script, not to Netflix this time, but it has Bradley Cooper attached.
You're talking about this week's script, yeah.
Deeper.
People liked that other episode with Bright.
I guess he's famous, like normal famous, but he's definitely like internet famous.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think he's doing good things for screenwriters in terms of like bringing their work into the discussion about like Hollywood and the industry, because you don't usually get a whole lot of screenwriters doing interviews or even just being offered interviews, I would say.
Right.
Unless they're also like the director. If it's like a writer-director, then maybe. But he's starting to, kind of gain a reputation, and he's an interesting guy.
Well, I mean, he's really young, and he has how many screenplays produced and how many are in development?
Oh, I don't even know. He
Quite
says
impressive.
like countless. I was watching this interview with him, and he says that, he claims there are just countless things that he's done like touch-ups on or rewrites on that he can't even talk about that aren't credited, which...
Makes sense.
You gotta, I guess, take him at his word for that. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that happens a lot. That's true. But yeah, he's just like kind of a character. He seems a little bit full of himself at times, but overall, I think he seems like a cool guy, and he seems like he's having a lot of fun with it, is his attitude. Like, oh, I thought this was a cool idea, so I just thought I'd write it, which... again, can be frustrating. Like, he really does bang out scripts pretty fast, it seems. This one, in particular, I saw him say that it was exactly that. It was like a whim. He just thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny? And then he says in like 3 days he had this script.
See, that just boggles my mind. It's really impressive to me.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, and if, I don't know. To be fair, if you're gonna write a script in 3 days, this is the type of script I think it should be. Super contained, all more or less in real time. One main character anyway, that, it's a lot of dialogue versus like that Batman script, that fake Batman versus Superman script we read. Like, that is the opposite of the kind of movie that you should try and write in a few days, which I think it shows.
But, I mean, in that guy's defense, he wasn't trying to write a screenplay. He was trying to pull the wool over some people's eyes.
I guess. But anyway.
He's not a screenwriter.
My point, though, is I'm just trying to not revere Max Landis too much. Like, I mean, yeah, that's an impressive feat, but like, again, this is the type of script that seems like the most doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, I guess, a thriller, a contained thriller set underwater.
I feel like we're reading too many of those. This is almost a horror movie, though, too, I would say.
It's a psychological horror.
Yeah.
Contained thriller. You want to jump into the synopsis?
Yeah, sure.
Notice how I refrained from rhyming?
Yes, I appreciate that. All right. Eddie Breen, once an astronaut in training with NASA, has shifted focus to oceanography. Now, instead of exploring space, he's exploring the depths of our own planet in a one-man vessel which Eddie hopes to take all the way down to the Nihil Trench, believed to be the lowest point on Earth. Though he is in contact with a crew of technicians on the surface, reception is spotty at best, And in his isolation, after the last rays of light have disappeared from the world above, Eddie begins to see things. Ghostly figures, seemingly human, alive and swimming at impossible depths. Among them is a vision of Eddie's own wife, calling out for the baby who died along with her during childbirth. In his panic, Eddie careens into the wall of the trench so that by the time he finally reaches the seafloor, he's lost contact with the surface altogether, and even worse, he's sprung a leak. Here in a bed of seaweed, he has one last, impossible vision, the ghost of a woman named Marianne Delphine, a French oceanographer from the 60s who vanished in an attempt to explore the trench. Convincing Eddie that she means no harm, he actually lets her come aboard. Marianne helps Eddie to repair his vessel, and together they return to the surface, where they're greeted by several very astonished crew members.
Beautifully summarized.
This script is crazy.
It's pretty crazy. I get one thing I'll add is that Eddie is a former astronaut because he got a DUI at like following the death of his wife, and that fucked up his whole NASA career.
Right.
So he's in search of like redemption or whatever.
Yeah, I guess he started drinking after his wife's death, and so yeah.
And he has a young son.
Right. He does have one kid that is alive, and so that kid is like waiting for him on the surface, and they are reunited at the end. Happily. Yeah.
So it like totally makes sense that he's going to venture into some impossible mission very deep underground.
Right.
Very likely leaving his son parentless, but...
Well, that's supposed to be sort of his arc, I guess, you know.
That's his realization at the end of the screenplay.
Right. Like he's
But I mean, come on, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Like, maybe...
not the line of work you would want as a single parent.
Yeah. Needless to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to jump into it?
Yeah. So, you want to start with the good things?
Yeah, I think it's really important for contained thrillers like this, especially ones with like one main character. Like exposition's always required, and I think it's really easy for it to come across in this sort of screenplay as like really forced or contrived.
Yeah.
And I thought this screenplay did a really good job of doling the exposition out gradually and as pretty much as organically as is possible.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely.
We get like snippets of conversation between Eddie and the people that are helping him with this mission who are above water.
Right. It's like cool the way they do it because you kind of think he's kidding at first when he's like first going down. He's like, oh, I hope I don't see any like crazy ghost ladies like screaming about their babies.
Yeah.
And his friend is like, well, it's like an oddly specific fear. And then you just like, he lets it drop and the story goes on and you don't really know until later that he's like actually talking about a very specific thing because that is what...
He had been having nightmares about that.
Yeah, that was like his wife. Another thing I really liked, there was a scene which was kind of, I guess it's like page 35, so we're kind of just starting to see some of these really creepy things. He's in the depths, it's completely dark, but he has like a camera that he's using to take pictures and see kind of where he is. And he just kind of lets the camera run and it flashes and then the picture shows up on a little monitor. But it just automatically does this and he's not even paying attention to the photos. He's like working on some other little control panel thing and we see all these images go by and then we see like a figure appear in one of them. And then it like suddenly comes right up close to the camera and all you see is like its eyeball. And he still has his back turned so he doesn't see any of this. But it's a really cool use of like dramatic irony, I think, where we know more than he does about what's going down. He finds out later, and that's another cool moment when he actually sends these pictures back to the surface to like his crew. He's already by that point starting to see things, and he's like, "Can you guys just like look these over and tell me if I'm crazy?" And they're actually like, "No, that's really down there. You're not alone."
Yeah,
and that was a really cool moment. I think it progresses in really good discrete steps and like it's perfect. The structure of it I think works really well.
So at one point like early on he encounters several scuba divers at a depth that should be impossible for scuba divers to exist, and they warn him of something. What is it they're actually warning him of?
I don't know.
It never really
creepy. I don't know. They're just like there's been these creepy divers. That's the first thing he sees. This is like the point of attack, if you want to use the screenwriting lingo. So it's about page 15. It's like kind of usually a preview of what the tension or conflict of the script is going to be. So yeah, he has he sees these divers out there, which already he's way deeper than anyone could possibly be scuba diving. And they like somehow communicate with him over his radio, and they say something about like, there's been a terrible accident, you have to let us in. And he just kind of freaks out. He's like, no thanks.
Yeah.
I just thought it was like
I mean, that's kind of important, right?
Is it? I just thought it was supposed to be like a creepy, ominous thing.
Well, I mean, it is creepy and ominous, but like, the point is, ultimately, these aren't hallucinations. Like, deep down in this mysterious supernatural place, like, time is suspended or whatever. And they allude to some, like Nihilian or whatever the trench is called, like, people that live around there. Legend about, like, a place where life and death, those lines are blurred. Like, all vague and, like, bullshitty, but...
Yeah, I guess.
Like, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. Like, the science in this, too, doesn't make sense.
It's movie science.
It's, like, very... Yeah, no...
Like, there was a point where when he springs a leak, there's, like, a screw that's pushing its way out because of the pressure.
Yeah.
And he holds his hand over it, and the screw is, like, pushing through his hand. I feel like there's no way... if the pressure is great enough to drive a screw through his hand, how is it not strong enough to resist just him holding his hand to keep it in place?
Now, Daniel, you're not a trained scientist, are you?
No.
I'm not a trained scientist either, but it seems pretty self-evident that when you're thousands of meters underwater in the ocean and there's like a little leak, like you're instantly going to be crushed. Like it's just going to break.
Yeah,
you're not going to be able to push back a screw. There's like infinite pounds of water pressure on you.
It's kind of like an all or nothing thing, isn't it? Like, again, not a scientist. It seems like it's an all or nothing thing. If you have one like breach or compromise in the pressuring or whatever of the vessel, it basically implodes, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a scientist, you're not a scientist. Max Landis, definitely not a scientist.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not important for the screenplay.
No, I don't think it is.
Because it's ultimately, it's fun to talk about. Ultimately, I guess it's more about the redemption.
The character stuff.
I threw that in air quotes of
No,
Eddie.
You didn't. I saw he did not make actual air quotes, people.
Yeah, I did.
You were sitting right here. I saw your hands.
Air quotes. These are air quotes.
Now you did it.
I did it the first time.
What?
I raised both my hands.
I guess I didn't see it. You didn't do it enough. But you think the character stuff works pretty well though?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, this is kind of a weird thing to say, but it wasn't a very strong arc. His arc wasn't very strong for me.
Yeah.
But it was drawn in a very convincing and strong way.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I guess so.
Like, his realization should be really, really obvious. Like, this is a lot about your ego, dude, and you have a son who is still living. You should protect that son. Like, that's what he realizes ultimately, and he goes through this gut-wrenching experience to come to that conclusion. Like, it's pretty obvious, but it was drawn in a pretty powerful way, I guess. So ultimately,
like on a just moment to moment level, the dialogue reads really well and like
for them. Well, it's very, and this is like true of Bright too. It's like very bro-y. Like I mean, like it's like the same. You could replace Tyson and Eddie. Tyson's his like buddy with the two dudes from Bright.
I don't know if I agree with that. I was really going to make a point of saying this. Like, this script, the voices of the characters, to me, are very different. And I was impressed by that. Yeah, I feel like that's like something that I value very highly in a writer, is if they can sort of remove themselves from the equation, so like the characters don't just sound like them.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying this is Landis' voice either.
Well, sure,
just
but the point is like to be adaptable to a bunch of different personalities and voices. If you can get that across in your script, and just, you got to be like sort of a chameleon, you know, you got to be able to like adopt all these different voices for your script. And I felt like he really did that. I felt like this felt like a totally different script.
See, I thought the relationship was pretty much the same, but
I don't know. They hit that bro stuff so hard and Bright. It was like,
well, it's toned down here, but it's still there.
It's dripping in bro.
I mean, that's not inherently a negative either.
No. But no, this felt different enough to me. But
Okay.
I did have 2 points I wanted to make.
Oh, you did write that. That's a true story.
Yeah, I'm not messing around here.
Yeah.
I make notes for what I'm going to say. I don't know about you. Just riffing here.
Did you see these notes?
Okay.
There's some notes here.
Anyway, I have 2 points I wanted to make about the character arc stuff. One is that I do sort of agree with you that...
I guess my point concisely is it's not like a very sophisticated or novel idea.
Yeah, okay.
But go ahead.
Fair enough. I think it would have been better if... It felt a little disjointed to me right now. So you've got, like, his wife dies. But then there's also this sort of trying to be character arc thing, I think, about his vanity and, like, he wants to explore the unknown and, like, prove to people that there are still things in the world that you just can't explain. Which is cool, and it seemed like he really had something to say there, like Max Landis did, I mean.
Right.
But those two things didn't really connect. Like, I liked the angle of him being sort of full of himself, and that was why he was taking on this mission, and he's trying to sort of, like, save face, because he was sort of disgraced as an astronaut after the DUI thing. Anyway, I just wanted those two things to connect more. Like, his wife just died in childbirth. There's no reason for that. I wanted it to be, you know, like, if he was drunk driving and she was in the car and she died.
That's what I thought for a long time.
Yeah, like, because that would make more sense. That would be, like, a character reason for it to happen. But it was kind of limp as it is. Like, she just happens to die, and then afterwards, he gets the DUI. Yeah. So, I kind of wanted that, you know, the redemption thing would have been a lot stronger to me if he was the reason that she died. That's what I'm saying.
I think you make some great points there. I like the idea, too, and it's vaguely alluded to, that him coming down here is kind of him running away from his guilt in a way.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been a way to tie it back into his DUI and him ruining his life.
Right. It seems kind of interesting, too, like, the idea of this being the lowest point on Earth. It could be, like, almost literally the way you describe, like, him and his life, where he is...
He's like hitting rock bottom.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Hitting rocks, yeah.
Also, I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't point out that this is super similar to that other script, Resurface, that we read.
Right. Which I think I don't know if you want to compare them, but I think overall I like Resurface more.
Oh, really? Okay.
I just think it's like a stronger, more cohesive...
I think it's just two really different approaches. It's almost like
it's very different approaches.
Both of these writers, it's almost like they got the same writing prompt.
Yeah, that's great.
And they each wrote their own version of that script. It's like, write a script about a guy in a submersible trying to go to the bottom of the ocean. Something goes wrong.
Definitely.
And then the whole main tension is, can they get back to the surface?
Definitely.
So these two writers have taken very different approaches, and I think I personally like this one more.
I mean, I feel like I like them both overall.
It's hard to really... It's apples and oranges, even though they're so similar.
Even though the same things are happening, yeah.
They're taken in such a different route. Like, I don't know, this one is, you know, paranormal and, like, psychological. The other one was a lot more grounded in reality.
Yeah. There's, like, some weird... I mean, the plot really isn't that important, I guess, here. But, like, why isn't it a big deal that Tyson, his friend, is, like, coming down just as deep with him?
Yeah, that was weird.
Like, no attention's given to that.
I didn't mention Tyson in the summary because I thought he was kind of pointless. Like,
he was just another someone to reinforce the fact that the things that were being seen were actually real. And someone else for Eddie to talk to. And
then he just dies, like, at the hands of one of these ghost things. And
unceremoniously.
Yeah, really, like, they don't make a big deal out of it. You want to talk about that bro code that there was in Bright? If these two are such bros... He got over that dude's death real fast. I mean, granted, there's a lot of other stuff he has to deal with.
But he didn't seem too shaken up. He didn't seem any more shaken up about Tyson's death than he was about the rest of the stuff that was transpiring.
Yeah.
The whole mission and how the mission's handled is just really ridiculous. Like, it wouldn't go down like that in real life. Like, once the first...
I'm sorry, I thought you said you weren't a scientist.
I'm not a scientist, but it doesn't take a scientist to recognize the fact that when something strange starts happening, you don't continue on with the mission. There's no urgency to when the mission needs to take place.
They made a good point, though, I felt, of his crew telling him, hey, you need to come up now. This is over.
Guess what? The captain of the crew should override the dude in the submersible thousands of meters underwater.
You think they have like a control switch to just like bring him back against his will?
I think NASA would. Like that's how
I agree.
That's how it would like go in real life.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's not. That's secondary. Okay, go ahead.
The other thing I was gonna say though, this is just I guess a point for Max Landis that I thought was interesting. Well, okay, I've talked about this before too. How I feel like there are kind of two lines you can take with screenwriting. You can either kind of be like, oh, a screenplay is its own work of art. It's like its own medium. But then you have other people who I think just see script as a blueprint for the movie. And it's purely practical. It is just, here are the shots, here's the setup, and like, it's just the first step in a long collaborative process. It was weird to me that this seemed to walk both of those paths. Like, there were things about it that were really script specific that are not going to be in the movie at all. Really cool little details, like he'll color some of the text, he'll use like really little font, like tiny. Sometimes it was really light gray and hard to see, and it was supposed to be like giving you the creepy vibe. Usually it was when the ghost was like talking to him.
Or like indicate like a muffled sound or like a whisper kind of.
Yeah. All these things that are really like text specific that are only going to be in the screenplay. And yeah, maybe they're indicative of something about the mood or the ultimate, like the final product. But those to me, like, were much more of the opinion, like this script is its own thing. This is the end product. And they really worked pretty well for me. Like, I thought some of that stuff was pretty creepy, actually.
I thought the little font,
yeah,
that was really effective.
Yeah,
when he would just like highlight a color, like red would be in red font.
Yeah,
that didn't really work for me.
Okay,
because that doesn't really add much. But I think the little font, to your point.
What do you think about his goofy title page? He has like this weird little picture he made with symbols down the title page, which I guess is supposed to be like sort of like bubbles or like a path going down to the bottom of the ocean.
I mean, why not, I guess.
I don't know. It's just cool. It's just like, oh, he's having fun. He's just doing his best. He's just trying.
I don't know. I think, fun. Yeah, it's cool. Why not? Like,
anyway,
most title pages are the same. Might as well. Maybe it helps.
I don't know. Yeah, it's fun, though. It's like that. That's like adding to what I was saying, though, about the script being its own entity. Yeah. But then the weird contradiction for me is that at the same time, you've got moments where he clearly is pandering to like production-minded people, and he will put in a little thing about how like, oh, at this moment it'll like startle the more anxious audience members. So it's weird. I haven't seen both of those sides in the same script so much before. But I wanted to say one other thing.
Yeah.
About reading horror scripts specifically, because again, I think this is sort of a horror movie.
Yeah.
At least some kind of a hybridization of horror and thriller or contained thriller, whatever.
It's a contained thriller, psychological
horror.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyway, I haven't read a script in a long time, or I don't even remember ever reading a script that creeped me out as much as some of the points of this. Like, really, it was really effective for me. Like some of the little tiny text and just the way he would unravel things and separate the beats on the page so that it kind of spoils it sometimes if it's all running together on the same line. You know, it kind of helps with the surprise to jump down a line. Little touches like that, but also more importantly, this is like a bigger point I wanted to make about horror movies, is that I think when you read a horror script, it's a really good like litmus test of whether it's actually going to be a good horror movie or not, because at least to me, and maybe this is just my taste, I really don't go in for the jump scares much. That's kind of lame and cheap and gimmicky to me. And those kind of things don't read well on the page because of that kind of thing I was saying about spoiling the surprise. Like, even if you jump down a line or two for something like that, you're going to probably, unless you're really good at blocking your peripheral vision, you're going to be able to see like, oh, there's about to be some big sound or creepy thing that jumps out just down the page. But this script was really good and really creepy when it was doing those psychological things that are more subtle, and those things you can't really spoil on the page because you just really have to read it, and it really is like more of a conceptual, psychological internal thing.
Definitely.
That to me is what makes a much better horror movie, and I don't think it's a coincidence. That's much better on the page. It reads better.
Right.
Than those stupid little surprise things.
Yeah.
That's my hot take on horror.
No, I think that's good.
I kind of wanted to add that also because we had a really nice review on iTunes from a guy named Devin who he has requested that we read a particular horror script, which I think we're actually going to read it next time.
Yeah.
But he was saying he wanted us to talk more about horror movies and the genre, which we haven't done much. We haven't done a whole lot of horror scripts. So
we haven't. Have we done one that is strictly a horror script? I mean, the babysitter. Maybe
I don't want to. I don't want to honor that
correct.
one with the distinction of even calling it a horror movie.
This had horror elements.
Yeah, I guess we really haven't read.
The English speaker had horror elements,
but still,
like
no.
I guess in a similar way to this, but they're not horror films.
Yeah. So anyway.
So
yeah,
here we go.
Yeah, but do you want to do verdicts? Do you want to do our social media blast thing?
Yeah, let's do the social media blast. So you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/OSPodcast. You can also vote in our poll for the screenplay that we will read, not next week, but probably the following week.
Yeah.
It's either...
We've either got a David Lynch script or a past Blacklist script.
Yeah, so it's kind of exciting.
The log lines are both on the Facebook if you want to just comment there.
You can comment there. If you don't have Facebook, you can email us or tweet us, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all good. Our email is info@ospodcast.com. Our website is ospodcast.com. Our Twitter is @ospodcast. We're on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. We're on Stitcher now.
We're on Stitcher
I don't know if I told you that.
No, you didn't even tell me.
Yeah,
I saw the email.
I said I don't even really know what Stitcher is, but it pulls from the same feed that our iTunes feed.
So we're on Stitcher.
Yeah.
So that's dope. YouTube's really heating up. We're getting a lot more listens, it seems like.
That's weird to me. I don't know anyone that listens to podcasts through YouTube, but fine.
You know what?
Do your thing.
Exactly.
You do you.
I think that's about it. You can. Oh, you know what? No, I almost forgot because Devin was really kind and wrote us an iTunes review.
Yeah.
And that makes us the happiest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Verdicts?
Yeah. Overall, I like this. I would consider both the writer and the screenplay.
Okay.
I kind of have noticed between this and Bright that Landis really he I guess he packs more into his screenplays than maybe other writers would. There could be 3 distinct movies in this.
Interesting.
There's a lot of plot, and he just keeps pushing it further and further.
Uh-huh.
And I think there's downsides to that, but there's also upsides. And both this and Bright are both really readable and compelling.
What was your verdict for Bright?
It was the same.
Double consider?
Double consider, okay. Yeah. I think maybe overall I like this a little bit more. As we talked about, the horror elements or the psychological elements were pretty compelling.
Yeah. There's
definite weaknesses here, but overall I think it's worthy of a consider.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to one up you even and say that I was also consider on the writer and on the script for Bright, but I think Max Landis has earned himself. He's proven himself to me now. I am willing to...
So when you're doing this, you're basing this off of both screenplays? Or are we just looking
I think I have to for the writer, yes. I think I have to.
Okay, interesting.
Because, to me, the whole point of having a separate verdict for just the writer is to, know what else he's capable of, or, try and judge whether they could write more good scripts in the future.
Uh-huh.
And so, knowing that he's written both of these scripts, I think now I am confident in saying I can recommend him as a writer, which I don't know if I've recommended a writer before or just a script.
Not?
But I'm not trying to add too much weight to this, but I think it moved really fast and it was really simple and really contained, whereas the other script he wrote was much more sprawling and completely different. Like I said, it felt to me like the characters' voices were really different. The genre was really different, the scale of it, everything about it. It shows a lot of versatility.
Right,
so
that range is admirable.
That's really impressive to me, so we get to recommend.
Cool.
The script, still just a consider for me, but I did really enjoy it. I think I liked it more than Resurface. I don't know about you.
I mean,
in terms of submersible movies.
I think we were both pro Resurface too.
Yeah.
And these are pretty close for me. I think it's a really funny observation that they were both handed the same prompt and went different ways with it.
I would love to see more of that.
And both were strong, I thought.
Yeah.
So, cool.
All right.
So next week, at Devin's request,
we're going to read Eli by David Churchirio.
No. I don't know.
I'm going to leave it at that. Anyway, the log line. Having moved into a clean house to treat his autoimmune disorder, 11-year-old Eli begins to believe that the house is haunted. Unable to leave, he soon realizes that the house and the doctor who runs it are more sinister than they appear.